This is the CMO of Gaia-X, Roland. This is our newest podcast series. Gaia-X is a newly aspiring, rising European association, and together with you, we can develop a new concept of data infrastructure ecosystem based on the values of openness, transparency, sovereignty, and interoperability. Join us today at Gaia-X and be part of this technological ecosystem. Good day. This is Roland, CMO of Gaia-X. This is the Gaia-X podcast series, and today we have Roland Fadrany, the new CEO of Gaia-X. Roland, we are very happy to have you here with us today. How are you?
Vasila, I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
You must be quite busy with the transition to the new CEO role of Gaia-X. Please tell us a bit about yourself, your professional experience, and how you came about working with Gaia-X.
Sure. So I'm looking back to more than 20 years of international management experience, predominantly in technology sector and in the IT industry. Spent many years with electronic data systems, supported them in EMEA with functions around workplace services and large programs. Then went to join them in the US in the headquarters in Plano, where we introduced enterprise service management, and then moved on to HP, who was at the time increasing their service and the outsourcing service business. And after a couple of years there, I moved back to Austria to A1 Telekom Austria, looked into the telco industry, was responsible there really to build up a cloud and outsourcing business for the telcos, because it's really important that telcos start taking part of the value chain rather than just providing a very expensive infrastructure that has been written off many years before you really can monetize on it. And so that was an interesting change and an interesting move, because it was cloud computing that we started to push there, and we worked together at the time with Microsoft to bring in the Austria cloud, which was a concept with a lack of a European view, to make sure we talk about data sovereignty and overcome issues that people have with data not being under legislation they control. And it's funny because that was a couple of years ago, and now we're here in Gaia and doing this on a European level. And if we look at our hubs, we're actually starting to do it on a global level, which I find very promising. After that, I spent 3 years as channel director with Microsoft for Western Europe. And from there, I moved to Detikon. Detikon is a large German management consulting firm. I used to be partner there, and was responsible for application ecosystem and business process optimization. And in that role, I came across about 9 months ago. I came across Gaia-X again, together with T-Systems, who is an important part of Gaia, and also has certain roles and contributions. And I was working directly with the BUD for a couple of times. So I got a lot of experience on Gaia-X, which kind of helped me a lot when I got asked if I would be interested to step into this role and bring that endeavor further with the situation we have right now, because my experience is really as a service owner, software development organizations, delivery organizations, large operations. And I think the phase that we're in now, after a definition phase, what we really want to do, go into a very strong delivery position, is really where my skills fit in.
I hear lots of companies, really big companies that you've represented, and obviously you hold over 30 years of experience in the technology sector, which obviously brings a serious added value to Gaia-X. But can you guide me through what even inspired you in the first place to represent Gaia-X? Because obviously it's one of the most important projects out there from a European perspective, also cross-border perspective. But there has to be some key points that kind of tweaked your mind and even your mindset to go ahead and say, okay, yes, I would like to become the COO of GaiaX, which by default relates to a number of challenges from an operational perspective?
Yeah, right. I mean, first of all, you half answered the question by stating it's to me it's probably the most important cloud and data sovereignty initiative for sure in Europe, but most likely in the world, because we try with very clear steps to understand what has to be done to make sure that data sovereignty is really out there, and that means that users need to have control about their data, and at the same time we need to help the industry to exchange data. The value of value chains within industries, so data-driven value change, is just unbelievable. And when you take as an example the German automotive industry, they basically fostered over the last maybe 60 years a very strong relationship between the OEMs and their suppliers, and their suppliers became highly specialized experts in doing brakes, in doing electronic components, in doing entertainment components, in doing, I don't know, powertrains, whatever. But the very close relationship and the, at the time, let's say, analog exchange of information and data made them so successful. And when you look in the industry today, you need to do the same, but you have to do it in a digital way. So you have to build a data ecosystem in order to be a successful industry. And now exchanging data in terms of intellectual property is always a hot topic. So we need to make sure that this is a safe environment. But what I really see the future in this, and this is what's really intriguing, is when you think beyond an industry. There is a book, one of my favorite books, that is called The Medici Effect. And it talks about why in the Renaissance, the Medici were so successful because they brought in experts and geniuses from different domains. So artists, scientists, whatever, they brought them, theologists, they brought them all together. And it was very fruitful when they had discussions across domains. Now, when you think outside a single data space today and see what happens when you cross data spaces and you cross domains, the number of opportunities just explode. And this is what is so interesting. And the second part why I thought I want to be there is I think there had to be a stronger move to a more agile delivery unit to be faster in what we try to do. But at the same time, the positive thing is it's the first time where I see that policies, legislation, technology, and the industry are really all aligned in delivering what GaiaX is driving.
Roland, obviously you just dove completely from moving in a much different direction and taking up the CEO position, which it's quite challenging to step in such a role mid of the year. Already this is a challenge. Obviously you need to even prioritize on specific milestones. So if given that you had some time to run a competition analysis of what we're currently doing, how the market is evolving, and even the criticism that we've received, and we're receiving for obvious reasons in terms of our delivery, what would be your top priorities? First, as a professional, but also from a human-centric perspective, because you bring that value as well. You have a different instinct and you are also a person aside from a CEO. Give me a little bit your priorities for this year.
Sure. So the first thing when I stepped up to the role, I knew some of it because of my previous role supporting the board. But the first thing was really getting clarity of what we deliver. I think that was not really clear. So we worked together, Pierre, Francesco, and I worked together on the Gaia-X Framework, which is really the logical view of what we are doing. So we've broken down this kit, this Gaia-X framework, into services, and those services into sub-services, and those sub-services into components, and started to match where we are with this, because it was important to have a solid baseline. I think one of the challenges we had is we didn't have a solid baseline. We were just moving around and changing things, and people could not track where we are. And hence, a lot of criticism came up and said, we're not delivering anything. But that's fortunately, that's not really true. But we were weak in communicating where we are going from a content perspective, not a communication perspective. So clarity on the Gaia-X framework was the first thing we established. The next thing, once we had that, was linking all the activities, all what people are doing in the working groups, in the lab, in the committees, linking all these activities to those core deliverables so that we understand who is working on what. And to be honest, as you said, I'm a different person. My credo is always be brief, be bright, be gone. If you cannot link, what you're doing to one of the core deliverables in the Gaia-X framework, it's really questionable if you should continue doing it. I always say, as a leader, I have a few things. I want my people to understand where we're going and why. So no secrets on information, because you can't expect somebody to deliver and to be independent and doesn't need you all the time if you don't explain to the people what you need and what you want and what's the direction. So that empowers them to take decisions in their environment, in their space of responsibility, which is, I think, great, because that makes them way faster. And one brain is always weaker than 8 brains, and this is where you need to go. So that's the story. So I like to empower people, make them understand where we're going, and that was what the framework was helping for. And then the next step is, there is 2 things you can do every morning when you wake up. You can think about things you make better, but you also have to think about things you stop doing. And I think that's also important, because people tend to add things on and try to improve. And sometimes the worst thing is that you get really good in something you should have never started.
Yes. So what you're saying is reflecting before you're actually acting, and going back to
Yeah.
reflect on what has happened till this point. I think it's really uplifting, the fact that you're talking about team empowerment, and this is something that is actually needed. But at the same time, sometimes on a CXO level, there are difficult decisions to be taken, and sometimes also the empowerment may open doors for further criticism, because the team is not always going to see where you're going, even if you explain it in the best words. And sometimes they will not understand the crisis, because they do have a different perspective, and they're coming possibly from a different culture, where they're also coming from a different language. Therefore, there is an inherent gap in the understanding and how you may be positioning yourself. And obviously, there is equally an age gap in everything, which is not necessarily bad. It's also good, because different people can join to create something better. Sometimes, though, from a CXO level, we simply need to bring specific solutions, and we need to bring the solutions fast. And currently, the market is asking us to deliver something. What would be the response back to them?
Well, first of all, yes, there is different teams, there's different perspectives, there's different individuals, there's different cultures. I have a long background in dealing with that in electronic data systems or in Microsoft. It's a very diverse culture, and you also understand that people communicate differently. But the first thing is that with all my direct reports, I have a very, very close relationship. We talk very, very frequent. We see to align as much as we can, because I think if we say that somebody really doesn't have the right information to act, that's a leadership problem. It's not an employee problem. It's a leadership responsibility to make sure that all people that are supposed to work together have a clear view of what the goal is and what they should do. And it should be a very open culture that if somebody doesn't understand what they need to do, they need to ask, and they shouldn't be afraid to ask. And that's what's always happening. Because I think the worst thing you can do is you have a meeting where you try to get something new, or debrief from a CXO meeting was your example, and then you have people walking out of the door not sure what we really discussed and what the next steps are. And that happens often, not in this organization, but I've seen it many times. And this is one of the key leadership responsibilities. Second thing is, sometimes you look at stuff as a leader and see a clear path, and then you have some conversation with your team and figure out probably the path is not so clear. So it's always a mix of telling people what really the story is, but also listening if you probably overlooked something, which can happen. We're all humans.
Absolutely. Some of the work that you will delve in is related to the hubs, the national hubs. Right now, we have 15 hubs. We also have 2 international hubs, 17 in total. Many working groups, like a business transformation in terms of the working groups this year. Also, we have the lighthouses, and possibly this could be the main, let's say, value of Gaia-X from a business perspective. Thinking that the summit is only just a couple of months away, and the summit is also the opportunity to discuss all the deliveries, the milestones, everything that we've done, so that we kind of close the year and move to the third year, the 2023, which is the growth year. What do you believe we should be focusing following the flagship? And obviously, given the time that you would be allocated by the time to operationalize some things on your end.
It's a very simple answer. It's delivery. We need to make sure we have tangible results. We have tangible Gaia when we come to Paris in November. And we are on a very good trajectory to get there. I think what we had seen in the past is that the challenges are that we have complexity in the product itself. We have a lot of different interests to be considered. We have somehow fragmented, or let's call it friendly, very, very classical organization. Like when you look at the hierarchy diagram, with all those committees and working groups. But the complexity is as such that we just need to get the right people work together, regardless where they belong in the organization. And this is why my focus, my priority is really, in order to get delivery speed up, we need to go for agile processes. And we need to organize the teams that are delivering by the right skill set and by the time they can allocate. We must not forget we are a member organization, so people have other jobs too. So we are building now a process. We already built the process. We start using it, where we staff development teams for documents and code and whatever, based on skills, membership, of course, and also the time they can allocate in a controllable time frame. And we are shortening the delivery phases to sprints, and we use sprint squads to run those sprints in order to get faster delivery of smaller units. And the shortening of the development cycles will increase our control of the deliverables, and it will help us to steer faster if we see any issues coming up, and ensuring that the deliverables are really on track. So when you control this on a 3-week sprint basis, you have way more control than producing something that takes 3 months or 4 months, because if you figure out that usually short before the deadline comes, you figure out what's missing, and then you hardly have any chance to correct the course.
This is, I think this is something that was missing for some time. I think you're absolutely the right person for this job, not only because of the experience that you're bringing, but I think that you're very straightforward and direct in the project management orientation that is currently needed, so that we can take it a bit further. Roland, I would like to thank you for the time that you've taken. I know that you're time is rather hectic and you're moving from one direction to the next. But I would like to encourage you to come and visit us for the next podcast series that we will have hopefully in 3 months from now. For now, thank you very much.
Thanks, Vasilia.
Thank you very much. This was the Gaia-X podcast series. Please follow us, share us, link with us, and come back again. Thank you very much.